Okay, first of all, the name of the channel started as a joke. My sisters called me Beefcake Brother because I had gotten some really good fitness results. So, you either own the nickname or it owns you. So here we are. And I figure maybe I can take the joke a little further and actually do some good with it. So here we go. As you can imagine, when somebody gets in shape, they start getting a lot of questions on how they did it. What changed? And I will tell you that the number one thing that changed for me was not the physical activity necessarily. That was not the real difference maker. And I know that sounds really silly. Like, gosh, in order to get into shape, you have to be, a certain amount of physically active. You have to eat a certain way, etc. Like, there's so much quote unquote knowledge around that. So how can you say it wasn't the physical activity that really made the difference? And I can say that because most people are capable of those physical actions. Most people, including myself, for decades that it took me to figure this out, can lift that weight. They can do that action. They can eat that food, what have you. But we don't. Why? For me, this whole journey really started with asking myself questions like why? The biggest one being, what did I want for myself? I was 39 years old, and it hit me that I had been living my life for everybody else. From childhood into adulthood, I had been putting everybody else first. Now, there can be some real value in that. There can be a lot of gratification, but ultimately, I was withering. So I started thinking, what did I want for myself? Really thinking. And the first thing that came out was I wanted to know what a healthier, fitter life looked like. This is something that I'd been interested in since I was a teenager. I'd work out in secret, just doing some silly stuff like push ups, squats, and so forth, body weight. I didn't have any money, didn't have any weights. Did the typical thing that a guy in his 20s does, goes to the gym, puts in a lot of time, but never really got the results that I felt that I should have been. So I struggled for years. When I started asking myself questions about what I wanted and that popped out, I realized it's time to look for help. I don't think that I understand well enough how to do this to do it by myself. There's some who can. I couldn't. I have no shame in admitting that. And it paid off. I'm getting silly nicknames now, right? It's not such a bad fate. I've noticed generally that there is a giant gap. It doesn't seem like it should be, but it really is between people living their lives as they do and maybe wanting to change or to grow or to learn, like I did for so many years, about what a fitter life could be and living that life in whatever form, and then actually getting to the point of doing that consistently long term and having that be just your baseline in life. There's a real gap there. And it's not just fitness, there's anything that a person is interested in doing but struggles to sort of take on could suffer from that same gap. Somebody starts questioning a lot of things, they tend to gravitate towards some philosophy. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of that right now, but it definitely has helped me sort of understand myself and the world around me a little bit better. And one particular philosopher that I find really interesting and very accessible, extremely accessible, sort of an everyman's philosopher, was a gentleman named Jacob Needleman. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, but there's several of his books that I've read. In fact, I think some of them are on the shelf behind me. And there's a particular quote that I want to read off. I'll toss it on the screen as well, but I'll read it just in case you're listening on just audio only. And I think it really touches to the heart of what I'm getting at here. He says, to be deprived of your habits makes you realize that you are your habits. From time to time, something new arises within us that is not a habit, that is truly ourselves, but it's very fragile and likely to be overwhelmed by the repetitive functions we have identified with. The direction of true spiritual discipline is to pursue that fragile something which is not habit and make it stronger. That's the real I, the real self, which is ordinarily the victim of our habits. So anything that you've had arise within you that seems like, yeah, I'm really enthusiastic about this. I am really interested in this thing, but it just gets bulldozed by life. That could be the real you trying to peek out and establish itself. And for me, again, it was fitness, but for you watching this video, may not be. But I think that there's probably still value in sort of walking this path. So if you're watching this video or listening and saying, this is total bullshit, go ahead and close out. Totally understand. But if you're interested in sort of starting down the fitness or healthier path, if you are starting to ask yourself questions, or if you're just not quite sure why, but there's something telling you, you're not closing the video, could be that there's something within you that's trying to get out as well. So let's find out together.